The Calm Mind, written and published by Ngasline. In the relentless storm of modern consciousness, where thoughts spiral like leaves caught in an endless whirlwind, lies a profound truth about the nature of overthinking. It's not a personal failing, but rather a learned pattern that can be gently and systematically unwound. This discovery comes not from forcing the mind into submission or drowning out your thoughts with distractions, but through understanding the hidden mechanics of rumination that keep your mental gears grinding long after they've served their purpose. Like a computer running too many background processes, the overthinking mind isn't broken. It's simply caught in loops that can be identified, understood, and elegantly resolved. What neuroscience and ancient wisdom traditions have both revealed is that mental clarity isn't achieved through more analysis or harder thinking, but through understanding the fundamental patterns that keep us stuck in cycles of excessive contemplation. Lesson 1. Thoughts are clouds, not commands. Have you ever stood outside on a partly cloudy day and watched the clouds drift across the sky? Some clouds are dark and imposing, others are light and wispy, but they all share one crucial characteristic: they pass. No matter how threatening or beautiful a cloud formation might be, it eventually moves on, making way for something new. Your thoughts work in exactly the same way. Many of us have developed the habit of treating our thoughts as solid, permanent fixtures that demand our attention and response. We grab onto them, analyze them, and often let them dictate our emotions and actions. But thoughts are not commands that we must obey. They're mental events that naturally come and go, just like those clouds in the sky. Understanding the true nature of thoughts is the first step toward developing a calmer mind. Thoughts are simply electrical and chemical activities in our brains, creating mental images, words, and sensations. They're not facts, orders, or predictions. They're just activity in our nervous system, responding to internal and external stimuli. When we begin to see thoughts this way, we can start to loosen their grip on our peace of mind. The observer perspective is a powerful tool in developing a healthier relationship with our thoughts. Imagine sitting on a park bench, watching people walk by. You notice them, but you don't feel compelled to follow each person or get involved in their business. You can adopt the same attitude toward your thoughts. When a thought appears, you can acknowledge its presence without getting entangled in its story or letting it pull you into a spiral of overthinking. This perspective shift doesn't mean suppressing or fighting against your thoughts. In fact, attempting to stop thinking usually leads to more intense thought patterns. Instead, it's about developing a gentle awareness that allows thoughts to arise and pass naturally. Think of it like watching a movie. You can be engaged with what's happening on the screen without forgetting that it's just a projection of light and sound. Practicing thought detachment doesn't mean becoming emotionally numb or disconnected from life. Rather, it means developing the ability to engage with our thoughts selectively and purposefully. When a thought arises that requires genuine problem, solving, or creative thinking, we can choose to engage with it. When it's just mental noise or unproductive worry, we can let it pass like those clouds in the sky. One effective way to develop this skill is through simple observation exercises. Set aside a few minutes each day to sit quietly and notice your thoughts without trying to change them. Like a scientist observing phenomena under a microscope, simply watch what appears in your mind. Notice how thoughts often come in clusters, how they can trigger emotional responses, and how they naturally fade away when not given attention. As you practice this observational stance, you'll likely notice patterns in your thinking. Some thoughts might be recurring worries, others might be planning or problem-solving, and still others might be random mental chatter. The key is to recognize that you are not these thoughts. You are the awareness in which these thoughts appear. Developing this new relationship with your thoughts is a skill that takes time and practice. Just as clouds can sometimes gather into storms, your thoughts might occasionally feel overwhelming. But like all weather patterns, these mental storms will pass if you can maintain your observer perspective and resist the urge to fight against them. The freedom that comes from understanding thoughts as passing clouds rather than commanding officers is profound. It opens up space for clearer thinking, better decision-making, and a more peaceful state of mind. As you continue through this book, this fundamental understanding will serve as the foundation for developing an increasingly calm and centered approach to life. Lesson 2. Overthinking is fear in disguise. When we peel back the layers of overthinking, we invariably find fear at its core. Our minds race not because we enjoy the endless loop of thoughts, but because we're trying to protect ourselves from something we perceive as threatening. This fear can take many forms: fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of uncertainty, or fear of making the wrong decision. Understanding this connection between fear and overthinking is the first step toward breaking free from the cycle. Consider how often you found yourself lying awake at night, replaying conversations or imagining future scenarios. These thought spirals aren't random. They're your mind's attempt to control outcomes and prevent potential pain or disappointment. It's as if your brain believes that if you think about something enough times, you can somehow guarantee a perfect result or protect yourself from harm. The anxiety-overthinking cycle operates like a feedback loop. Anxiety triggers overthinking as we attempt to solve or prevent problems, but this excessive thinking then generates more anxiety, creating a self-perpetuating cycle. For example, you might worry about an upcoming presentation, which leads to endless mental rehearsals and analysis of what could go wrong. This intensive thinking then increases your anxiety, making you think even more about the presentation. To break this cycle, we must first acknowledge that our overthinking is a response to fear rather than a solution to it. When you catch yourself in an overthinking spiral, pause and ask yourself, what am I afraid of right now? The answer might surprise you. Often, the surface-level worry, like perfecting a presentation, masks a deeper fear, such as fear of rejection or inadequacy. One powerful way to face these fears directly is through exposure. Instead of trying to think your way out of fear, gradually expose yourself to what you're afraid of in manageable doses. If you're overthinking social situations, start with brief, low-stakes social interactions. If you're obsessing over career decisions, take small steps toward different options rather than trying to think your way to the perfect choice. Another effective tool is the fear inventory practice. When overthinking strikes, write down your specific fears about the situation. Be honest and detailed. Then examine each fear objectively. How likely is it to happen? What's the worst possible outcome? What resources do you have to handle that outcome? This practice helps transform vague anxieties into concrete concerns that can be addressed practically. The body plays a crucial role in breaking the fear-overthinking connection. Fear triggers our fight or flight response, which can fuel mental spinning. Physical practices like deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, or gentle movement can help calm the nervous system, making it easier to step out of thought spirals. When you notice yourself overthinking, try taking 3 deep breaths or going for a short walk before attempting to address the situation mentally. Learning to differentiate between productive problem-solving and fear-based overthinking is essential. Productive thinking leads to actionable insights and has a natural endpoint, fear. Based overthinking, on the other hand, feels compulsive and rarely leads to useful conclusions. Ask yourself, will continuing to think about this help me solve the problem, or am I just feeding my fear? Fear itself isn't the enemy. It's a natural part of being human. The goal isn't to eliminate fear, but to prevent it from driving excessive thinking patterns that drain our energy and peace of mind. By recognizing fear as the root cause of overthinking, we can begin to address our concerns more directly and effectively, leading to clearer thinking and better decision-making. Practice self-compassion as you work with your fears. Overthinking often comes from a place of wanting to do well and avoid mistakes, a fundamentally good intention. By approaching our fears with kindness and understanding, we can gradually loosen their grip on our thought patterns and find more peaceful ways to navigate life's challenges. Lesson 3. Simple minds sleep better. In our modern world of constant information bombardment, many people lie awake at night with minds racing through endless loops of thoughts, worries, and plans. The connection between mental clutter and poor sleep is undeniable, Yet few understand that the path to better sleep begins with mental minimalism. Mental minimalism isn't about becoming less intelligent or aware. Rather, it's about creating space in your mind by removing unnecessary mental baggage. Just as a cluttered room can make it difficult to relax physically, a cluttered mind makes it impossible to find mental rest. The first step toward mental minimalism is recognizing that not every thought deserves your attention or energy. Begin by practicing thought selection throughout your day. When a thought arises, ask yourself if it serves a genuine purpose in the present moment. Does it help solve a current problem, or is it merely recycling old worries? Is it actionable now, or are you carrying it needlessly? By consciously choosing which thoughts to engage with, you naturally begin to declutter your mental space. Creating mental space requires regular maintenance, much like keeping a physical space tidy. Set aside time each day to clean your mind through simple practices. One effective method is thought journaling. Spending 10 minutes writing down everything on your mind without judgment or organization. This process helps transfer mental clutter onto paper, creating immediate relief and clarity. The evening hours are particularly crucial for mental minimalism. Your brain needs time to transition from the day's activities to restful sleep. Establish a mental sunset 2 hours before bedtime, where you gradually reduce mental stimulation. This means avoiding work-related thoughts, complex planning, or engaging with emotionally charged content. Develop a nighttime routine that signals to your brain it's time to wind down. This might include gentle physical stretching, reading light material, or practicing breathing exercises. The key is consistency. Your brain learns to associate these activities with the transition to sleep. Avoid screens during this time, as they not only stimulate the mind, but also interfere with natural melatonin production. Another powerful practice is the mental checkout procedure. Before lying down to sleep, imagine your thoughts as items you're checking into a secure storage facility. You can trust they'll be there tomorrow, so there's no need to keep holding on to them through the night. This simple visualization helps create psychological distance from persistent thoughts that might otherwise keep you awake. Sleep quality improves naturally when you maintain mental minimalism throughout the day. Start your mornings with a clear intention to keep your thought processes simple and essential. When you catch yourself spiraling into complicated thought patterns, gently guide yourself back to simplicity. Complexity often masks itself as productivity or thoroughness, when in reality, it's usually just mental noise. Practice saying "not now" to thoughts that aren't immediately relevant. This isn't about suppression, but rather about appropriate timing. Many thoughts that seem urgent at night can wait until morning. By establishing healthy boundaries with your thinking patterns, you create the mental conditions necessary for deep, refreshing sleep. The art of mental minimalism extends beyond better sleep. It creates a foundation for clearer thinking and more effective decision-making during waking hours. As you consistently practice these principles, you'll notice that your mind becomes naturally more ordered and peaceful. This ordered state becomes your new normal, making it easier to fall asleep and stay asleep through the night. The simplest solution is often the most effective. Your mind doesn't need complex systems or elaborate techniques to find rest. By returning to basics, clear thinking, minimal mental clutter, and consistent routines, you create the conditions for both better sleep and a more peaceful waking life. Lesson 4. Action cures mental chaos. When we're caught in the web of overthinking, our minds can feel like a room full of bouncing ping-pong balls, each one representing a different thought or worry. The more we think, the more paralyzed we become, creating a state known as analysis paralysis. This mental gridlock prevents us from taking meaningful action, and ironically, it's action that often provides the very clarity we're seeking through endless contemplation. The relationship between thinking and doing is much like the difference between reading about swimming and actually getting into the water. You can study swimming techniques for years, but until you experience the sensation of water supporting your body, you'll never truly understand how to swim. Similarly, no amount of thinking can replace the wisdom gained through direct experience and action. Moving from thought to action requires a fundamental shift in our approach to life. Instead of waiting for perfect clarity or complete certainty, we must embrace the idea that action itself creates clarity. When we take steps forward, even small ones, we generate momentum that carries us through the fog of overthinking. This momentum is powerful because it shifts our energy from the mental realm to the physical world, where real change happens. Building momentum through action doesn't require grand gestures or complete life overhauls. It starts with small, manageable steps that gradually accumulate into significant progress. For instance, if you're overthinking a career change rather than endlessly analyzing every possible scenario, you might start by having one conversation with someone in your desired field or taking a single online course. Each action, no matter how small, provides real-world feedback that's more valuable than hours of mental speculation. Creating action-oriented habits is essential for breaking free from overthinking patterns. This means establishing regular practices that prioritize doing overthinking. One effective approach is the 5-minute rule. If something takes less than 5 minutes to complete, do it immediately rather than thinking about it. This simple habit prevents the accumulation of mental clutter and builds confidence in your ability to take action. Another powerful strategy is to set specific action triggers in your environment. For example, instead of thinking about exercise, place your workout clothes by your bed the night before. When you wake up, the visual cue triggers action before your mind has a chance to spiral into analysis. These environmental prompts bypass the overthinking mind and create direct pathways to action. The beauty of action is that it provides concrete data that thinking alone cannot generate. When we act, we learn through experience what works and what doesn't. This experiential learning is far more valuable than theoretical knowledge because it's grounded in reality rather than speculation. Even failures become valuable feedback when we're actively engaged in doing rather than just thinking. Developing an action-oriented mindset also helps us recognize that perfection is the enemy of progress. When we're caught in overthinking, we often seek the perfect solution or the ideal moment to act. However, life rarely presents perfect conditions. By embracing action as a form of exploration rather than execution of a perfect plan, we free ourselves from the paralysis of perfectionism. Regular action also has a calming effect on the mind. Physical engagement in tasks, especially those that require our full attention, naturally reduces mental chatter. Whether it's gardening, cooking, exercise, or any other hands. On activity, action provides a natural antidote to overthinking by anchoring us in the present moment and giving our minds a much-needed break from endless analysis. Action and thinking aren't mutually exclusive. They're complementary forces that work best in balance. The goal isn't to stop thinking altogether, but to prevent thinking from becoming a substitute for doing. When we find ourselves caught in mental loops, taking action, even small steps, can break the cycle and lead us toward the clarity and progress we seek. Through consistent action, we build not just momentum, but also trust in our ability to handle whatever challenges arise, creating a positive cycle that naturally reduces overthinking and mental chaos. Lesson 5. Nature never overthinks anything. In our relentless pursuit of solutions and answers, we often forget that the greatest teacher lies just outside our window. Nature, in all its magnificent complexity, operates with remarkable simplicity and efficiency. Trees don't question whether they should grow taller, rivers don't contemplate which direction to flow, and seasons change without deliberation. This inherent wisdom of natural systems holds powerful lessons for our overthinking minds. Consider how a flower blooms. It doesn't analyze the perfect moment to open its petals or worry about whether it's the right time. It simply responds to the conditions present, sunlight, temperature, and seasonal cues. This natural intelligence demonstrates that complex processes can unfold without the burden of excessive thought. We can apply this same principle to our decision-making processes, learning to trust our natural instincts and respond to life circumstances with similar fluidity. The natural world operates in rhythms and cycles. Day follows night, tides ebb and flow, and animals migrate according to innate patterns. These rhythms aren't questioned or seconded. Guessed, they're simply followed. When we align ourselves with natural rhythms, we can reduce the mental friction that comes from constantly fighting against the flow of life. This might mean respecting our body's natural sleep-wake cycle instead of overthinking our bedtime, or allowing ourselves to be more productive during our natural energy peaks rather than forcing productivity at all hours. Nature also teaches us about efficiency in decision-making. Animals in the wild make countless decisions daily: where to find food, how to avoid predators, when to rest. Yet they do so without the paralysis of overthinking. They operate on a combination of instinct and immediate environmental feedback. Humans can learn from this by simplifying our decision-making processes and trusting our initial responses more often. One powerful way to incorporate nature's wisdom into our lives is through nature-based mindfulness practices. Spending time outdoors, whether in a forest, by the ocean, or in a local park, can help reset our overthinking minds. The practice of forest bathing, or shinrin, yoku, developed in Japan, shows how immersing ourselves in nature can lower stress levels and quiet mental chatter. When we observe natural phenomena, leaves dancing in the wind, clouds drifting across the sky, or waves meeting the shore, we're reminded of the peaceful simplicity that exists when we let go of excessive thinking. Nature also demonstrates the power of letting go. Trees shed their leaves in autumn without resistance, rivers release their waters to the ocean without hesitation, and animals adapt to changing environments without questioning why. This natural surrender isn't weakness. It's a form of wisdom that acknowledges the futility of resistance to natural processes. We can apply this wisdom to our own lives by learning when to let go of thoughts, worries, and the need for constant control. The simplicity of natural systems doesn't mean they're not sophisticated. Rather, their sophistication lies in their ability to achieve complex outcomes through simple, direct responses to environmental cues. This teaches us that effectiveness doesn't require complicated thinking processes. Sometimes, the most elegant solutions come from simple, straightforward responses to our circumstances. By observing and learning from nature, we can develop a more balanced relationship with our thoughts. We can learn to trust our natural intelligence, align with life's natural rhythms, and make decisions with greater ease and confidence. The key is to remember that just as nature thrives without overthinking, we too can function more effectively when we allow our natural wisdom to guide us instead of getting caught in endless mental loops. Incorporating these natural principles into our daily lives doesn't require dramatic changes. It starts with simple practices, spending time outdoors, observing natural phenomena, and gradually learning to trust our innate wisdom. As we align more closely with nature's way of being, we naturally move away from overthinking and toward a more peaceful, effective way of living. Lesson 6. Present moment kills worry. Time is a peculiar construct of human consciousness. While we possess the remarkable ability to remember the past and imagine the future, this gift often becomes our greatest source of anxiety. Our minds frequently drift away from the present moment, creating elaborate stories about what might happen or rehashing events that have already occurred. This tendency to live outside the present moment is at the core of overthinking and worry. The present moment is the only time we truly have. Yet we spend countless hours dwelling in imagined futures or remembered pasts. When we examine our worries closely, we discover that most of them exist either in our memories of past events or our projections of future possibilities. The present moment, however, is usually manageable and rarely as overwhelming as our thoughts make it seem. Grounding ourselves in the present moment is a powerful antidote to worry and overthinking. This involves becoming fully aware of our immediate experience, the sensations in our body, the sounds around us, the rhythm of our breath. When we anchor ourselves in these immediate experiences, we naturally step out of the spiral of worried thoughts. The simple act of feeling your feet on the ground or noticing the temperature of the air on your skin can instantly break the cycle of mental churning. Mindfulness in daily life doesn't require hours of meditation or complex techniques. It can be as simple as fully engaging with whatever you're doing at the moment. When you're washing dishes, feel the warmth of the water and the texture of the soap bubbles. While walking, notice the movement of your body and the contact of your feet with the ground. Even during conversations, practice being fully present with the other person rather than planning what you'll say next or thinking about other matters. The power of present moment awareness lies in its ability to reveal the fundamental truth that most of our suffering exists in our thoughts about situations rather than in the situations themselves. When we're fully present, we often find that this moment is complete and sufficient, just as it is. The problems that seemed so overwhelming in our thoughts become more manageable when we deal with them one present moment at a time. Our bodies can serve as reliable anchors to the present moment. Physical sensations are always occurring in the now, making them valuable tools for escaping the grip of worried thoughts. Deep breathing, conscious movement, and sensory awareness are simple yet effective ways to return to the present moment. When anxiety rises, focusing on the physical sensations of breathing, the expansion and contraction of your chest, the flow of air through your nostrils, can quickly bring you back to now. The practice of present moment awareness also reveals how many of our worries are unnecessary. Often, when we're fully present, we discover that right now, in this moment, everything is actually okay. The problems that consume our thoughts are usually not happening right now. They're projections about the future or remnant of the past. By staying present, we naturally reduce the mental energy we spend on these non-existent scenarios. Developing present moment awareness is like building a muscle. It requires consistent practice, but becomes stronger over time. Start with small moments throughout your day. When you notice yourself getting caught in worried thoughts, gently bring your attention back to your immediate experience. What do you see, hear, feel, smell, or taste right now? This simple practice, repeated consistently, can dramatically reduce the hold that worry has over your mind. The present moment is always available as a refugee from overthinking. It offers a space of clarity and peace that exists beyond our mental narratives. By learning to access this space more frequently, we naturally reduce our tendency to get lost in worried thoughts about the past or future. The present moment truly is the key to freedom from overthinking. It's where worry dissolves and peace becomes possible. Lesson 7. Trust more, think less. One of the most powerful antidotes to overthinking is developing a deep sense of self-trust. Many of us have been conditioned to doubt our instincts and overanalyze every decision, creating a perpetual cycle of uncertainty. This habit of second-guessing ourselves often stems from past experiences where we felt we made mistakes or from societal pressures to always make the perfect choice. To begin cultivating self-trust, we must first acknowledge that our intuition is a valuable form of intelligence. While analytical thinking certainly has its place, our gut feelings are often based on complex pattern recognition and accumulated wisdom that our conscious mind hasn't yet processed. When you feel a strong intuitive pull toward or away from something, it's worth paying attention to that signal rather than immediately dismissing it in favor of endless analysis. Building confidence in our decisions starts with making small choices and honoring them. Instead of debating for 20 minutes about what to eat for lunch, try making a choice within 30 seconds and sticking with it. Notice how often these quick, intuitive decisions turn out just fine. As you practice this with low-stakes decisions, you'll gradually develop more trust in your ability to make larger choices without excessive deliberation. Letting go of control is another crucial aspect of developing self-trust. The illusion that we can control everything through careful thinking is exactly what keeps us stuck in overthinking patterns. Life is inherently uncertain, and no amount of analysis can completely eliminate risk or guarantee perfect outcomes. When we accept this truth, we can begin to relax our grip on the need to think through every possible scenario. Our intuition often speaks to us through physical sensations. A feeling of expansion or contraction in the chest, a sense of lightness or heaviness, or a subtle knowing that something is right or wrong. Learning to tune into these bodily signals can help us make decisions more efficiently than endless mental debate. Start paying attention to how your body responds to different choices, and you'll discover a reliable internal guidance system that operates faster than analytical thinking. The relationship between trust and overthinking is inverse. As trust increases, the need to overthink decreases. This doesn't mean becoming reckless or abandoning critical thinking altogether. Instead, it means finding a healthy balance between thoughtful consideration and trusting your inner wisdom. When you catch yourself spiraling into overthinking, ask yourself, what would I do if I trusted myself completely right now? Developing self-trust also involves accepting that mistakes are not failures but opportunities for growth. When we trust ourselves, we understand that even if a decision doesn't lead to the expected outcome, we have the resilience and capability to handle whatever comes our way. This confidence in our ability to navigate challenges reduces the pressure to make perfect decisions through excessive analysis. Practice makes progress when it comes to building self-trust. Start each day by making a conscious choice to trust yourself more and think less. When faced with decisions, set reasonable time limits for consideration rather than allowing yourself to ruminate indefinitely. Notice how often things work out well when you trust your initial instincts and take action. Trust is like a muscle. It grows stronger with regular exercise. Each time you choose trust over overthinking, you're reinforcing new neural pathways and creating healthier decision-making habits. Over time, you'll find yourself naturally gravitating toward trust-based responses rather than falling into analytical paralysis. The path to a calmer mind leads through the gateway of self-trust. As you develop this essential quality, you'll discover that many of the questions that once triggered overthinking can be answered simply and clearly through trusting your inner guidance. The mental energy previously spent on excessive analysis can then be redirected toward actually living and enjoying your life. Lesson 8. Peace starts between thoughts. The spaces between our thoughts hold the key to lasting mental peace. Most people spend their entire lives focused on the content of their thoughts, never realizing that the true sanctuary exists in the gaps between them. These intervals, though brief, contain the essence of tranquility that we're all seeking. Finding these gaps begins with developing awareness of our thinking patterns. Just as a musician understands that music is created not just by the notes, but also by the spaces between them, we must learn to appreciate the natural pauses in our mental activity. These moments of stillness are always present, but our habit of constant thinking often overshadows them. Meditation serves as the primary gateway to discovering these peaceful intervals. Begin by sitting quietly and following your breath. As you observe your thoughts, you'll start to notice tiny spaces between them, moments of pure awareness before the next thought arises. These gaps might be milliseconds long at first, but with practice, they become more noticeable and prolonged. Creating mental stillness isn't about forcing thoughts away or trying to maintain an empty mind. Instead, it's about developing the ability to rest in awareness itself. Think of it like sitting by a busy road. The cars, thoughts, will continue to pass, but you can choose to focus on the road itself rather than following each vehicle that drives by. Daily peace practices help expand these gaps between thoughts. Start your day with 5 minutes of quiet sitting, gradually increasing the duration as you become more comfortable. Throughout the day, set reminders to pause and notice the space between your thoughts. Even in the midst of activity, these micro moments of awareness can provide instant access to inner peace. The modern world constantly bombards us with information and stimulation, making it challenging to find these peaceful intervals. That's why it's essential to create designated times and spaces for stillness. This might mean turning off notifications on your phone, finding a quiet corner in your home, or taking regular walks in nature without any digital devices. As you become more familiar with the peace between thoughts, you'll notice that this stillness is actually your natural state. The constant mental chatter is merely a habit, not your true nature. This understanding can be profoundly liberating. You don't need to add peace to your experience. You only need to notice the peace that's already there. Physical practices can support this discovery. Gentle movement practices like Tai Chi or yoga help create a bridge between physical and mental stillness. Simple breathing exercises, especially those that incorporate brief pauses between breaths, naturally lead to experiencing the gaps between thoughts. Thoughts will always arise. That's the mind's nature. The goal isn't to eliminate thinking, but to develop a different relationship with it. When you know that peace exists in the spaces between thoughts, you no longer need to resist or control your thinking. You can simply rest in the awareness that contains all thoughts. This chapter's practices might seem subtle at first, but their impact can be profound. As you become more familiar with the peace between thoughts, you'll find yourself naturally gravitating towards stillness rather than getting caught up in mental activity. This shift doesn't require force or effort. It's more like remembering something you've always known but temporarily forgotten. The peace between thoughts is always available, waiting to be recognized. It's the background against which all mental activity occurs, the canvas upon which thoughts appear and disappear. By learning to rest in this space, you discover a source of calm that's independent of circumstances and immune to the storms of overthinking. Start exploring these gaps today. Notice the brief pauses between thoughts during your daily activities. Let yourself sink into these moments of stillness, however brief they might be. With time and practice, you'll find that peace isn't something you need to create or achieve. It's the very nature of your awareness, always present between one thought and the next. Lesson 9. The mind lies, the heart knows. Our minds are incredible tools for analysis, planning, and problem solving, but they can also be masterful deceivers. The thoughts we experience aren't always accurate representations of reality. They're often distorted by our fears, past experiences, and unconscious biases. These cognitive distortions can lead us down paths of unnecessary worry and overthinking, creating problems that don't actually exist. Think of a time when you were absolutely certain about something negative, only to discover later that your perception was completely wrong. Perhaps you convinced yourself that someone was upset with you, spent days analyzing their behavior, only to find out they were dealing with their own personal struggles that had nothing to do with you. This is a perfect example of how our minds can construct elaborate stories that feel real but are entirely fabricated. The heart, on the other hand, operates on a different wavelength. It doesn't engage in complex mental gymnastics or create detailed worst-case scenarios. Instead, it responds with simple, clear knowing. This emotional wisdom, often called intuition, can cut through the mental noise and point us toward truth. When we learn to listen to our hearts, we access a deeper form of intelligence that isn't clouded by overthinking. Connecting with emotional wisdom requires practice and trust. Start by paying attention to physical sensations in your body when making decisions. Does your chest feel tight? Does your stomach feel relaxed? These bodily signals are your heart's way of communicating wisdom that your mind might miss. Many people report feeling a sense of expansion or lightness when something is right and constriction or heaviness when something is off. Heart-centered decision-making doesn't mean abandoning logical thinking. It means integrating both forms of intelligence. When faced with a choice, first allow yourself to feel into the situation before engaging the analytical mind. Notice your immediate emotional response. Then use your rational mind to examine the practical aspects. This balanced approach leads to decisions that are both emotionally satisfying and practically sound. One powerful way to distinguish between mental chatter and heart wisdom is to notice the quality of the thoughts. Mental lies often come with a frantic, urgent energy. They push you to act quickly out of fear or worry. Heart wisdom, conversely, tends to feel calm and patient. It doesn't demand immediate action or create pressure. It simply presents truth with quiet certainty. Learning to recognize cognitive distortions is crucial for breaking free from overthinking. Common distortions include catastrophizing, assuming the worst possible outcome, mind reading, believing you know what others think, and black and white thinking, seeing situations as all good or all bad. When you catch yourself engaging in these patterns, pause and ask your heart what's really true. The practice of balancing head and heart requires regular check-ins with yourself. Throughout the day, take moments to place your hand on your heart and breathe deeply. Ask yourself, what does my heart know about this situation? Often, the answer will come as a simple feeling or knowing, rather than a complex thought process. Your heart speaks in the language of love, compassion, and truth. When your mind tells you that you're not good enough, your heart knows your inherent worth. When your mind spins stories about future disasters, your heart remains grounded in the present moment. When your mind complicates simple situations, your heart gently guides you back to clarity. Building trust in your heart's wisdom takes time, especially if you've relied heavily on mental analysis in the past. Start small by following your heart's guidance in low-stakes situations. As you experience positive results, gradually extend this trust to more significant decisions. You'll likely find that your heart's simple wisdom often leads to better outcomes than your mind's complex calculations. Lesson 10. Let go and answers come. The greatest paradox of finding mental clarity lies in the act of surrender. Throughout our lives, we've been conditioned to believe that harder thinking leads to better solutions. Yet, time and again, our most profound insights and brilliant ideas emerge when we finally release our grip on the problem at hand. This phenomenon isn't mere coincidence. It's a fundamental truth about how our minds operate. When we consciously grapple with a challenge, we engage primarily with our analytical left brain, which processes information in a linear, logical fashion. However, breakthrough solutions often require the creative, intuitive capabilities of our right brain, which works best when we're in a relaxed, receptive state. Consider how often the answer to a persistent problem has come to you while taking a shower, going for a walk, or just as you're drifting off to sleep. These moments of insight occur precisely because you've temporarily abandoned the active pursuit of a solution. By letting go, you create space for your subconscious mind to work its magic, connecting dots in ways your conscious mind never could. Creating this space for solutions requires trust in the process. It's about acknowledging that not everything needs to be figured out through sheer mental effort. Sometimes the most productive thing we can do is step back and allow our innate wisdom to surface naturally. This might mean taking a break from actively thinking about a problem, engaging in activities that bring us joy, or simply allowing ourselves to be present in the moment without seeking immediate answers. The art of surrender doesn't mean giving up or becoming passive. Instead, it's about adopting a different relationship with our thoughts and challenges. It's about understanding that some questions need time to ripen and some answers need space to emerge. When we constantly prod and push for solutions, we actually create resistance that blocks our natural problem-solving abilities. Moving forward with clarity requires a delicate balance between active engagement and peaceful surrender. It's helpful to think of this process like planting a garden. We prepare the soil, gather information, plant the seeds, engage with the problem, and then step back to let nature take its course. We don't dig up the seeds every day to check if they're growing. We trust in the natural process of growth. This approach can be particularly powerful when facing life's bigger decisions or complex emotional challenges. Rather than exhausting ourselves with endless pros and cons lists or trying to predict every possible outcome, we can state our intention clearly, gather necessary information, and then allow the answer to reveal itself in its own time. Practical ways to embrace this surrender include regular meditation, spending time in nature, engaging in creative activities, or simply taking regular breaks from intense mental work. These practices help quiet the conscious mind and create the conditions for insight to arise naturally. Clarity often comes in waves. The first insights that emerge might be partial or incomplete. By maintaining an attitude of openness and continuing to create space, deeper understanding naturally unfolds. This process requires patience and faith, qualities that strengthen with practice. The ultimate irony is that by learning to let go, we actually gain more control over our mental state and decision-making abilities. We become more attuned to our intuition, more confident in our choices, and more peaceful in our daily lives. As we cultivate this practice of surrender, we discover that the answers we seek have often been within us all along, simply waiting for the space to emerge. This journey toward mental clarity isn't about adding more techniques or strategies to our mental toolkit. Instead, it's about removing the obstacles that prevent our natural wisdom from shining through. By embracing the paradox of surrender, we open ourselves to deeper insights and more authentic solutions than our thinking mind alone could ever provide.